The average 30-year-old in America is carrying a staggering $42,000 in student loan debt and nearly $4,000 on credit cards. And almost nobody your age comes close to the savings targets the experts claim you should have. Pause for a moment. How does your bank balance compare to those numbers? If you've ever silently wondered whether you're falling behind, you're about to see the uncomfortable truth that even your most put-together friends are probably hiding. In this video, I'll break down exactly where the average 30-year-old stands on debt, savings, and home ownership using real data, not Instagram highlights. By the end, you'll finally know if you're actually behind, ahead, or just surviving like most of your generation. And even more important, I'll share a step-by-step plan to help you start closing the gap. So stick around, because the next 20 minutes could completely change how you measure your financial progress. Part 1. The Debt Reality Check. Let's get brutally honest. For most 30-year-olds in America, feeling secretly broke isn't just a late-night anxiety. It's statistically normal. If you've ever scrolled through your banking app at 3 a.m., wondering how your college roommate already bought a house while you're juggling a growing credit card balance, you are not alone. At almost every dinner party, someone will casually flex their healthy savings account. And the rest of us are silently calculating whether the money in checking will last more than 12 minutes past payday. These scenarios aren't just common, though. They're textbook for Americans in their late 20s and early 30s. But what if you could finally know, with hard data, what normal actually looks like? That's what we're here to do. To make things clear, I analyzed federal statistics, major financial surveys, and dozens of real stories, so you don't have to wonder if you're way behind. But before we dig in, I want you to comment below. What's the one number about your own finances that you wish you could change? Is it your debt, your savings, or your monthly rent? Drop it below. Let's make this a safe place to get real. Okay, let's rip off the Band-Aid, starting with what shapes our generation's finances more than anything else. Student loan debt. According to the latest federal data, the average 30-year-old is carrying $42,000 in student loan debt. And just to be crystal clear, that's not the amount people borrowed. It's the balance they still owe after years of supposed progress. That single number is higher than many people's annual salary. Picture that. You could work an entire year, and even after taxes, you wouldn't earn enough to wipe out your student loan tab. Worse, most 30-year-olds will still be dragging that debt well into their 40s. But here's where the system gets even muddier. The most common monthly payment for that $42,000 in loans is about $436. That's $436 every single month. Money you can't save for a house, can't stash for emergencies, can't invest for retirement, and can't spend on a plane ticket just to escape reality for a weekend. Let's do a mental calculation. $436 times 12 months means you're sending over $5,200 a year to loan servicers, often for a decade or longer. You might think, okay, that's painful, but at least after 10 years you're done, right? Not always. Here's the dark secret. A huge percentage of 30-year-olds can't keep up with standard 10-year payment plans. So they enroll in income-driven repayment options. These plans lower your monthly payment, sometimes down to a couple $100. But they can stretch your loans over 20 years or more and often don't even cover the interest. That means your loan balance silently grows while you're technically paying. Let me show you how this works in the real world. Let's talk about Michael. At 31, he's a software engineer in a big city, pulling in a solid $75,000 a year, a number that sounds great on paper. Michael finished a computer science graduate program, but walked away with $65,000 in student loans. Overwhelmed, he picked an income-driven repayment plan, which dropped his monthly payment to $420. Manageable, he thought. Until 3 years later, his loan balance had grown to $68,500. That's right, he made every payment, never missed one, and his debt went up by $3,500. Over those 3 years, he sent just over $15,000 to loan servicers and watched his total balance climb anyway. The reason is interest capitalization. His payments weren't covering the interest, so that unpaid interest piled onto the principal. When Michael finally realized what was happening and switched back to a standard plan, his new payment exploded to $780 a month, or over 15% of his gross income. And since he was contributing to his 401k and paying taxes, that was about 20% of his monthly take-home pay, gone before he even saw it. The takeaway: student loan repayment isn't just about the minimum. It's about the system steering millions of borrowers into longer, more expensive repayment and sabotaging their ability to hit life milestones. Pause here. If this example sounds painfully familiar, or even if you just felt a shiver run down your spine, drop a "me too" in the comments. You are definitely not alone. These numbers hit almost everyone I talk to. Now, what about credit scores? Student loan delinquency isn't just a budgeting issue. It's causing some borrowers' credit scores to plummet by over 100 points. In fact, recent data shows that over 1 million borrowers saw their scores drop by an average of 177 points after missing payments. That turns a 720 score, which used to get you prime mortgages and travel cards, into a 540, meaning much higher interest rates or outright denials. Not just for homes, but car loans and even competitive apartments. Even worse, student loans are almost impossible to discharge in bankruptcy. So that balance follows you everywhere. I want you to screenshot this section. Student loans aren't just a line item. They're reshaping every major financial and life decision for 30-year-olds today. Part 2. Credit Card Crunch. Not all debt is created equal, eh? Let's move to another pain point shaping the modern 30-year-old's life. Credit card debt. The average 30-year-old has just over $4,000 on their cards. Maybe that doesn't sound world-ending compared to a student loan. But the rules for credit cards are totally different. With an average APR near 22%, a $4,000 credit card balance racks up about $880 in interest. Each year, if you don't aggressively pay it down, credit card lenders make most of their profit from people paying just the minimum, or who can't clear the balance every month. But here's the truth the media rarely covers. 30-year-olds today aren't racking up card debt on wild shopping sprees or luxury vacations. Most of this debt is boring, essential, often humiliating stuff. Rent that's a little higher than expected, groceries at the end of a long month, a car repair that can't wait, a medical bill that insurance barely covers, or simply the cost of living emergencies that keep turning up. Want proof? Let's look at Sarah's story, which lines up with the median 30-year-old experience reported in national stats. Sarah is 30, works in marketing, earns $58,000 annually. That's dead on the national average for her age. She finished college 8 years ago with $35,000 in student loan debt and has made every payment since. Her monthly student loan payment is $380. But she also carries $3,800 in credit card debt. Here's how it breaks down. $1,500 from a transmission failure 6 months after her warranty. Vanished. $800 in medical bills after 2 urgent care visits. The rest, roughly $1,500, from what personal finance experts call lifestyle inflation, the mental health tax of just trying to stay sane in 2024. Sometimes, that's splurging on groceries instead of fasting for payday, replacing a laptop that died right before a work deadline, or ordering takeout after a 10-hour Zoom slog. Sarah's minimum card payment, $120 a month. But the real problem arrives when you do the math at 22% interest. If she only pays the minimum, it'll take her over 18 years to pay off the card, and she'll pay over $8,000 total. So her $3,800 in current debt could cost her more than twice as much over time, simply for the privilege of living one blown tire ahead of disaster. Pull up your calculator. What would your minimum payments on $3,800 at 22% be? Try it, and share your number below. I'll read as many as I can and help clarify the math. Here's the bottom line. Sarah is spending 38% of her take-home pay on rent, 15% on her car and insurance, and another 10% combined on student loans and credit cards. That leaves almost nothing for emergency savings, if even one thing goes wrong. Her car needs tires, her laptop breaks. She almost has to use her card again, starting the cycle anew. That's why credit card debt is a chronic problem for 30-year-olds. It isn't that they're irresponsible, it's that the modern cost of adulting mathematically outpaces steady income. Curiosity loop. But if you thought the stories about debt were bad, the scariest, most overlooked problem actually hits when 30-year-olds try to buy their first home, or try to save for the future. In about 2 minutes, I'll show you the shocking saving statistics almost nobody talks about, and why the typical advice online is wildly unrealistic. Part 3. The Homeownership Trap. If student loans and credit cards are quicksand, housing is the concrete wall at the edge of the pit. The homeownership rate for adults under 35 has collapsed to just 37%, the lowest in 4 years, meaning nearly 2/3 of 30-year-olds are still renting. For context, their parents' generation routinely owned homes by their late 20s. So, why is buying impossible today? Start with the average home price. As of this year, it's over $500,000 across the country. That means, by almost any lender's math, you'd need $100,000 up front to make a standard 20% down payment. And avoid private mortgage insurance. $100,000 easily dwarfs most 30-year-olds' total combined savings and investments by a factor of 2 or 3. But even if you could scrape this money together, the financial hit keeps coming. The typical interest rate for a 30-year mortgage in 2024 is 6.75%. On a $500,000 home with 20% down, your monthly payment before taxes and insurance is $2,400. Let's bring Sarah back. After taxes, her take-home is about $3,800 a month. That means a mortgage would eat up 63% of her monthly income. For reference, experts recommend spending no more than 28% of your gross income on housing. So Sarah would need her payments down around $1,350 per month. That's not even counting property taxes, insurance, HOA fees, or maintenance emergencies. Let's put it another way. Most apartments where Sarah lives cost $1,800 to $2,000 to rent now, or about 40 to 50% of her income. That's not reckless spending, It's simply the cost of available units in most cities. This directly fuels a psychological and financial squeeze. 30-year-olds can't buy, and yet every rent check builds zero equity. They're stuck between not earning enough to save up for houses, but making too much to qualify for assistance programs. And if they combine incomes, by marrying, for example, they often just compound their student loans and price themselves out due to debt-to-income ratios. Add to that increasingly strict rental application criteria. Landlords now require credit scores over 700, income triple the rent, and sometimes $200 or more just to apply. For anyone whose credit took a student loan hit, finding a decent rental is a struggle all its own. Here's a myth-busting quotable you can share. Stop judging your money by Instagram compared to reality, not someone else's highlight reel. Most people you know are paying rent that's higher than a mortgage would be, but locked out of home ownership by the upfront costs and debt standards unique to millennials and Gen Z. Engagement prompt. Which part of the housing struggle lands most for you? The relentless rent, or the unattainable down payments? Share your story below and let's crowdsource some solidarity for our generation. Part 4. The Savings and Retirement Mirage. Now for the most soul-crushing numbers of all. Savings. According to most financial experts, including the team at Fidelity, a 30-year-old should have at least 1 year of their annual salary saved by 30. So if you make $60,000, you should have $60,000 in cash and investments. Are you laughing? That's normal? Because only 14% of Americans have even $100,000 saved. Regardless of age, and more than half can't cover a $1,000 emergency without going into debt. Let me hammer it home. If your car needs new tires or your laptop dies, 50% of Americans must borrow or rack up debt to fix it. The median savings balance nationwide, which includes retirees and older workers, is $62,400. When you break it down by age, it's far lower. Most 30-year-olds' accounts are described by professionals as dangerously inadequate. Here's why the year's salary by 30 advice is, for many, a fantasy. If you graduate at 22, spend your first few years earning $30,000 to $40,000, pay $600 per month toward loans, and $1,200 in rent until your late 20s. When was this magical moment supposed to arrive where you save $60,000? It's like running a marathon with a 50-pound backpack, then being judged for not breaking a world record. Imagine this, personal finance websites cheerfully telling 30-year-olds to set aside $800 a month for retirement, which, for the median $58,000 income, is around 25% of their take-home pay. Meanwhile, that same person is already spending 38% on rent and more on loans. For many, $800 per month for retirement is as plausible as unicorns and affordable health care. This is what I call the financial advice paradox. The standard for responsible is almost mathematically impossible for most. Every article, every YouTube guru shouts, save more, invest more, but they rarely acknowledge the lived reality. Costs are high, jobs are volatile, and cutting back on frivolous living often means slicing into career prospects, relationships, or mental health. But here comes the most shocking stat, the one absolutely nobody shouts from the rooftops. The average 30-something's retirement account is just $14,000, not $60,000. That's the goal, but the real number is $14,000. According to Fidelity's latest 2024 data, let's run the numbers. If you use the classic 4% rule for withdrawals, that would support about $560 of income. You heard me right, $560 per year in retirement, or $46 per month. That doesn't even pay for a cell phone bill. That $14,000 is supposed to fund 4 decades without working. It's not happening, which is why understanding the real averages matters so much. If you're feeling anxious right now, please remember, you're not alone. This isn't just your poor planning. It's an economic system with moving goalposts, micro-CTA. Screenshot this savings chart. Keep it as a reminder that most people you know are in the same boat. Part 5. 3 steps to regain control at 30. At this point, you might feel like the story is hopeless. But the first step to changing your financial trajectory is knowing where you actually stand. Compared to real data, not just highlight reels. So here's a simple framework. 3 steps to regain control at 30. No unrealistic promises, just practical steps grounded in what actually works. Step 1. Face your real numbers. Take 1 hour with your actual bank, credit card, loan, and investment accounts, and fill out a 30s net worth snapshot. I've linked a free checklist you can download below. Write down every account. Don't judge, just list it. Cash, checking, retirement, debts, and all of it. This gives you a starting score, free from comparison, so you can set actual goals. Step 2. Set a micro savings target. Don't start with save $800 a month. Instead, pick one small but specific goal based on what's realistic for your situation. That might be $50 per pay period, or matching your next work 401k contribution, or saving your next tax refund. Not payday-level miracles, just manageable, incremental progress. Step 3. Pick one debt pain point for the next month. Maybe it's finally calling your loan servicer to ask about refinancing, or making a $20 extra payment, or setting a credit card auto pay to avoid late fees. Focus on one bite-sized action. The momentum will build over time. Life is not a contest to see who can be debt-free by 30. It's about steady progress and understanding that the system was built to be hard. If you want more step-by-step tools, I suggest tracking your progress with a budgeting app like Mint, YNAB, or Personal Capital, and checking in once a month using your net worth snapshot to celebrate small wins. Curiosity loop callback. And here's a final myth to bust. Most people feel like they're failing impossible standards. But once you compare your numbers to the real data, you realize knowing where you actually stand is the first step to actually winning. For yourself, not for someone else's highlight reel. Remember, pretending everything is fine while ignoring these realities isn't a strategy. It's just expensive denial. Making one honest move, no matter how small, toward clarity is always more powerful than faking perfection. Bonus! Download my free 30s net worth snapshot checklist. Link is in the description. It's helped hundreds of people in my channel's community finally get perspective, stop the spiral of comparison, and take their first real step forward. Let's wrap up what we've learned today. We broke down the real financial numbers for 30-year-olds in America. Student loans averaging $42,000, typical credit card debt just over $4,000, and median retirement balances at an eye-opening $14,000. The dream of having a full year's salary saved by age 30, that's a myth for most. If these numbers felt discouraging, remember, the real mistake is not where you are, but believing you're the only one struggling. The average is so far off the advice. It's impossible to compare yourself to social media or what the gurus say. Here's what you can do, starting today. First, download the free 30s net worth snapshot checklist. Links in the description. Use it tonight to fill out your real numbers. No judgment. Second, set one micro savings target for this month. Whether that's $50, your next tax refund, or matching a work retirement contribution. Finally, pick one debt pain point to tackle in the next 30 days. Maybe it's a phone call, refinancing, or an extra payment. Do these steps, and you'll already be ahead of 90% of people your age. Not because you hit some magical number, but because you faced the reality and made progress. The changes may not show up overnight, but if you recheck your net worth snapshot every couple of months, you'll see improvement long before anyone else's curated Instagram posts start making you jealous. Again. Next, I want you to download my free checklist, and if you haven't already subscribed to Money Masters, in my next video, I'll show you the most forgiving side hustles, which have helped dozens in our community boost their net worth without sacrificing full-time career ambitions. For this video, comment with your biggest worry or myth you've believed. I answer all top comments in future videos, and if you found this series empowering or even a relief, share it with someone who needs to know the truth about what's really normal. As always, remember, this content is for educational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. Everyone's financial circumstances are different, so consult a qualified professional before making major money moves.